It is once again noon of the seventh day of the week, which some people think is important. It's just the day that we praise the depths of gaming.
Yeah, the Cthulhu of gaming. Please rise! He's Necro!
That's Jaheath.
And this is the depths of gaming.
Episode 67. We're getting there. We're on our way to the big 100. We're 66.6 repeating of the way there.
Yes.
It's quite amazing. And for that, we've got some quick, tasty depth charges for you to snack on and then blow your jaw off. Fortnite is continually having a problem figuring out balance. And this is because they are the number one multiplayer game, some would argue, in the world right now. Forbes is writing about them obsessively. There are whole websites that make good traffic and ad revenue off of people looking for Fortnite information now. Almost any hack news website is full of Fortnite information.
And that all of that, and yet Fortnite originally was not
it started as a completely forgettable, like, cooperative builder.
Yes. And it became this rock star of a game, all thanks to one of their subsidiaries.
All thanks to ripping off people that bought a license from them.
Yes. Well, technically, they were sued for it, but the lawsuit didn't fall through, surprisingly enough.
Well, yeah, it fell through. It didn't go on.
Which means this is completely original game.
Clearly. And that's because it's generally difficult to do lawsuits over video games because, like artwork, it's expected that there's going to be similarities, but there's always going to be a signature aspect of the game. And
yeah, you cannot copyright chords, you cannot copyright styles of painting, and you cannot copyright a genre of shooter.
And that's
of a video game.
And that's what makes Fortnite such a ingenious move, is because they weren't stealing, because that's where PUBG met its fall, is it was a game you paid a bunch of money for a game mode, one multiplayer game mode. And the issue with building your game around one game mode is all someone has to do is say, no, we didn't steal your game. We were inspired by your game mode to make a whole new game with our own identity. And sure enough, there's the building
To be
aspect.
fair, they didn't even have to say that they were inspired by PUBG. Battle Royale games existed before that.
Yes, they did. Several of them. It's just Fortnite's or PUBG is the one that made it popular. It's always the case, is despite the fact that these systems have existed for years, a popular game comes around, suddenly everyone talks about that game. I remember when I was playing Mass Effect, and the guy behind me that lived on my couch kept saying, "Are you playing Halo?" And I'm going, what the fuck? How clueless do you have to be that all shooter games are Halo to you?
At least it's still a third-person shooter, kinda.
No.
With RPG elements. right?
It's a whole
Because
different. It's literally a whole different game. It plays differently. It works differently. Halo's a linear shooter for one, with no
but is it
development or.
first person or third person?
It's first. What, you never played Halo?
I don't have
You heretic!
dude, I reject the idea of a console. I will never be a
They
console
ported
peasant.
it over, you asshole! Like 10 years ago.
I'm not going to play a subpar port from a console.
I'm almost entirely sure that you have, and you're full of shit.
I am full of shit.
So, but about this balancing thing,
Yeah.
this almost always happens to explosive weapons, but no, this time it was about the submachine gun. They added a submachine gun, but it was way too good. It was extremely accurate and powerful, so they toned it the fuck down.
I hope they gave it a little bit more spread.
I think they did. I haven't really played with it. Yeah, it was really powerful when it first came out. The other thing that I'm sad that they did is they toned down remote explosives. Because you were able to throw C4 on the base of a building, pop it, and it would basically blow up the whole building.
Yeah, that's not how C4 works, at least not in real life. It basically explodes with a lot of oomph, but it doesn't go very far. It's usually used for breaching charges more than anything else. Right.
So I think they toned the fuck down out of the destruction in range. Because it feels like it goes nowhere near as far as it used to. They cut it down by at least 66%. It was gnarly. I have a lot of fun with explosives in Fortnite, so this affects me very, very badly. Because I relied on remote explosives a lot, and so this nerf affects me quite heavily. That's okay, I guess. The other thing is one of the more controversial weapons is on its way back. The guided rocket launcher.
So basically, they will also. I remember that in Fortnite you can ride a rocket. You can ride also the homing rocket, right?
Yeah, that's the weapon I'm talking about.
That would be very much fun.
And so now it's supposedly going to be more of a scouting tool than an actual weapon. It'll be weaker, supposedly.
Good.
I mean, I wish it was like really weak against people, but powerful against buildings.
Yeah,
like,
that would
be
sense.
Nice. Really,
but to be fair, if you're struck by an RPG,
yeah,
there's not coming back from that.
Yeah, you're gonna get blown open. But this is a cartoon world where you can dance if you want to.
Or leave your friends behind.
But your friends don't dance, and if they don't dance, then they're no friends of mine.
Indeed.
So, Sunless Skies has.
I can pick that up.
You have no idea how much I love that song. So, Sunless Skies has released a new area. This is the game by Feel Better Games. They've been in rocky waters, and they've basically gotten by making one game over and over again.
Yeah, well, multiple games in the same world, right?
With more or less the same system, yes.
Yeah.
And, there's not really anything wrong with that except for... we've seen this with the endless series of games. It becomes an undecipherable wreck of bullshit. Because you start trying to link everything together, and the result is you have all these games that kind of follow a theme. For Endless, it's Far West, space fantasy... aliens, ancients, precursors, action, fantasy, strategy, and it's an indecipherable wreck.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste. You can certainly not complain about lack of complexity when it comes to Sunless Skies.
And so Sunless Skies, just like Sunless Seas, you're in a vehicle, you patrol the unknown, you look for areas that everyone knows about, but for some reason you don't have a map of.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. Like, I get it, they want you to go gain experience, but it makes no sense that you don't have a basic, like, map that shows you where the major ports are in the starting zone. That's
Well,
ridiculous.
as a technicality, the world that they've built kind of shifts, and they play around with this idea of madness and elder gods kind of twisting things around. Basically, from what I remember, the entire London was stolen by bots. How do you deal with that? This is the kind of world where a city can be stolen by bots.
Oh yeah, I know. The fall in London setting is pure madness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a city of people that have gone crazy in the Underdark.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there are people that really like Fall in London. There are people that really like the series, but I'm not really one of them. They passed a law recently declaring loot boxes gambling, and so they're on the scene now, because now every game with loot boxes needs to
has to disclose has to disclose the contents of the box.
They have to
so
disclose
that you do
their
not buy
information
it.
now.
Exactly, so that you can't really buy something that you don't know what you're buying, which is great, and I would be very happy if the rest of the EU adopts this kind of law enforcement. Because
I think this is the most logical conclusion, and I really like that Valve figured it out so quickly for everyone else, like they always do.
Yep.
They are very good at that.
Yeah, and it would be very nice if the developers actually, if they actually see that the world does not want them to use those gambling mechanics, and just apply those regulations that were created by the Dutch across the board for all of their games. Right? Because then neither I in Poland nor you in US would be able to be exploited in that way.
Right, because that's the big problem right now is there's this rampant misuse of the system, right? And
Lou?
Huh?
Necro? Ah, there you are.
Didn't you hear what I was saying?
No. I'm sorry. I apparently now I had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry.
So there's this big problem with the system and how it's being used, and that's why there's been such a kerfuffle. I mean, we have things like FIFA, we have things like the Battlefront 4 controversy.
Everything starts with these EA Sports games, where EA basically started to creating those gambling mechanics for cards, for players, and basically in order to created booster packs for single-player games. right? And then they said, oh, maybe we can actually use that as a paid mechanic and introduce that in an online play. And it went downhill from there. Because surprisingly enough, sports players, sports gamers, are not the same breed of gamers that play shooters or RPGs. There is no exchange of information between those two groups. And sports players were kind of shunned, I think, by the community of hardcore gamers. And this is the reason why these mechanics went under our radar, right?
Right.
But now that they revealed themselves to the light of the day, now we can curb them when they before they spread, at least.
Right, because this is something that's been coming up is these new games will launch, they'll promise founders packs, they'll promise loot crates, and at first, well, founders pack scams. Like,
pre-orders, season passes, founder packs.
Yes.
And there's like every game, especially Ubisoft is guilty of that. Every game that they release, it has like 6 different versions.
Wild West Online made its way onto Steam, and they're getting in a lot of trouble because people are pointing out that it's acid flip garbage. You know what we've been saying before it came out.
It's good to be right. It's so good to be right. Yeah, unfortunately, people do not accept asset flips. Not even from a AAA developer.
He'll be back soon. What was that? I'm sorry, people keep talking to me. I know, it's almost as if they don't understand what a broadcast is.
Talk to me tenderly. Don't worry about it. We're going to fix it in post.
We're actually not. I almost never fix this shit.
Almost.
Speaking of this shit, let's continue on with this glorious broadcast. Because there's somehow a company that's pulling off things worse than we're pulling off this broadcast, right? Well, me. I am the weakest link. But so is the guy, Quantic Dream right now, because they're in a bit of a lawsuit blitz right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if you treat your employees like shit, they have a tendency to sue you. And law is on their side.
Yeah, because there's a number of things that have been happening. A French article came out from Canard PC, and they have discovered that the former IT manager was doing all sorts of horrible stuff.
Yeah, like for example, photoshopping faces of his co-workers onto porn stars.
Porn stars, Nazis. He did a lot of Photoshop. He did 600 of these damn things.
Mm-hmm. He's a fan of Photoshop.
And he finally caused 5 people to leave because there was no there was almost no reparations. And apparently there's a lot of turnaround at Quantic Dream. There's a lot of there's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of shady dealings.
The worst bit about that is, I think, their contracts, the HR department forcing people to basically shut their mouths and take whatever the abuse that they were dishing out, which is quite a bit of bullshit.
And of course, CEO
At least
David
if you
Cage
believe
is
the rumors.
pretending this never happened, and I've never been aware of these images. These images, not at all.
Mm. Yeah, once you start hushing down on the press and telling them don't publish that, don't do that, you're basically admitting guilt. Didn't they threaten someone that if they're going to publish this story, then they're not going to receive free copies of video games or review copies of video games?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. It might be just my imagination, because surprisingly enough, all of the shady developers act similar way when they try to shut someone up. It was the same story with Digital Homicide and a few others, but they were mostly indies.
Yeah.
I don't know if Quantic Dreams can be considered an indie, but they do
Not
certainly
really.
act like that.
I mean, they make AAA titles. Now I don't consider them indie, because
Yeah.
in the final stretch to produce Detroit Become Human, they were working 70 hours a week for some people,
Yeah.
and that's a lot that's almost twice the amount of time you should be spending. That's 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they are a AAA developer, but the way they're acting, it's like they do not have public relations department at all. They don't know how to filter the information that they're putting out. Either that, or they completely ignoring their public relations department, which might be the case. Because you do not... I have to question the sanity or the level of adulthood of someone who's photoshopping faces of his coworkers onto porn stars. Right? That kind of person does not separate work environment from and professionalism from what they would allow themselves to do off in the off hours, right? You know what I mean, right?
Yes. And this inability to police their work environment is ridiculous, especially when there's what's going on now, which is they just lost their very first lawsuit against one of their former employees, who now is being ruled as a unfair dismissal, and that's going to have consequences for Quantic Dream, especially because other employees or previous employees, they're going to be able to have their cases looked at,
open their own lawsuits. Yeah.
And this is going to result in a lot of feedback. It's not permissible for this sort of behavior to occur.
Yep.
When you have between 150 to 200 employees.
Yes.
When you have that many people working under you, you need to police yourself.
Yeah, you need to realize the idea of professionalism. How to act professionally. I know that in professional environments, like in corporate environments, there is this pressure, or rather this split of personalities. Some people, when they go into big business, they want to act casually in order to give this more of a homey atmosphere in order to attract clients and people and partners, right? However, that kind of approach makes you weak and unprofessional, makes you unreliable. And however, the professional approach is very cold and assholish, and many people think that if they act like it, they're going to scare away both the clients and the partners. However, that's not true. People like the cold professionalism. Well, I guess that would depend on the culture, right? But the cold professionalism is always the best solution, especially when you're when you're working in a team. It might be assholish, it might be cold, but at least it gets the job done and gets people paid. And people like getting paid more than they not like being homey with you and casual.
Right.
I hope this makes sense.
It does. And the other thing is, they're also suing the journalists behind the piece we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yay! It always gets worse.
It always does. It's always very interesting when this sort of thing happens.
Mm-hmm. So
on to answers that nobody wanted.
Yes. Let's see what kind of cringe we can get out of that.
Avalon88 writes, where do you draw the line between a character flaw and a toxic character? This occurred to me while I was watching Critical Role. I'm on the second campaign and just 18 episodes in. Characters have had time to work them up and get in the groove. There are two that just irritate me, Bo and Jester. I may be thin-skinned, so I don't like them, and it's likely just how they design their characters that they act like that, but sometimes I feel like they legitimately often cross an unspoken line, and still people tend to act to like them, usually because of those crossed lines. Again, it's probably thin skin, but I wonder what the threshold of other people when it comes to things like this. Like, how much does a player or DM have to play into a certain character flaw or negative design choice that goes from compelling to outright toxic? I really wish he was more specific, but there's a lot of comments here. I mean, a lot of people are saying they're being thin-skinned, and no one seems to really want to talk about what they're actually doing.
Well, I guess when it comes to this question, when you talk about a person, a character with a flaw, it entirely depends whether or not your character becomes a nuisance to the other players. Because you have to, whenever you have a dilemma when it comes to D&D, you have to look at it from the perspective of having fun in the game. Do you want to be a nuisance to your friends who dedicate their time and effort in order to spend time and have fun with you? If you cannot make the character flaw work for the group that you're in, I think that you should at least modify it in order for it not to become a burden for the group.
Right. Like, I had a similar kind of issue recently. So a bunch of my friends, we formed a campaign, and we've been playing, and there was a prologue game that I wasn't able to attend because of work, and so there's this character that is a Minotaur fighter, and his player does not really understand his alignments. There's a popular school of thought that chaotic evil means you have to kill, rape, and maim everyone you see because that's what the alignment means. And that's how it behaves if you're a monster. If you're a thoughtless idiot. If you're not really thinking about your character as a character. Which is ironic, because of several reasons. So essentially, every time we would meet a new character or an NPC, before any of us could react, he would quickly shout, "I pull out my weapon," or "I attack." And this is another very toxic misconception that people make, is he who talks first acts first. This isn't true. This has never been true. And I really don't like it when people assume this. Because... No, please continue.
Basically, whenever it comes to character alignment, the character alignment is more of a suggestion than anything else.
Yes.
The difference between, for example, lawful and chaotic characters is the same difference as between someone who has OCD and has to keep everything clean, symmetrical, in line, and someone who is a complete and utter slob. That doesn't mean that person who is a slob is a bad person. It just means that they do whatever the fuck they like and do not give in to this desire to keep everything symmetrical, no matter how attractive it may be, right? There is this chaotic nature to people who do whatever they feel like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion that I get, because the argument is always, oh, I'm playing my character how I need to play my character, or this is how the character would act. That's a very thinly veiled lie. Because, number one, I never saw the part of the rule book that says you had to do that. Number two, no, that's not true, because there's a lot of write-ups that were made by Gary Gygax and the creators of Dragon and all that expand on alignment. And there's a website, even easydamus.com /alignment, that has a compilation of what these essays mean and what to kind of take out of them. So at first you would read the one on chaotic and evil and go, okay, well, there's no problem here, because it basically says what most people think about chaotic evil, which is maim, kill, burn. However, there is a paragraph that flips that entirely on its head. And here we go. The chaotic evil being seeks personal freedom at the expense of those who aren't smart, capable, or ruthless enough to get what they want. If what this being wants will only come at the price of the freedom and happiness, not to mention the lives, of others, so be it. Other individuals and their freedoms are unimportant if those freedoms cannot be held through their own strength and merit.
So basically selfishness.
Yes. All else being equal, the evil character being is perhaps the most dangerous character of all, because one rarely knows how he might react to a given encounter. For reasons often known only to himself, he could ignore some situations, then suddenly explode in apparently identical ones. His behavior patterns are almost impossible to predict, for he has probably learned to curb and control his penchant for evil due to constraints of civilization. A chaotic evil being is not expected to go around insanely slaughtering and torturing everyone he meets, for he isn't usually stupid.
Yes, chaotic does not mean stupid, and evil does not mean stupid.
He will realize the consequences of such activities and will participate in such pleasurable distractions only when safe from discovery. To a chaotic evil being, the lives of others have no value and are incidental in the pursuit of ultimate freedom and personal power. And this is, there's a little 4 next to this, and this means that this is part of a Dragon article by J.R. Renaud that was written in 1990. The article is called "Making Law Out of Chaos." This is big because at first glance, this character Mogis is right. Well, the others are weak, and I need to kill the weak, and the weak. But things that the player did not realize about his character is he has 11 intelligence. He's of average intelligence. Therefore, he probably knows that if he goes around killing people, people will notice.
Yes.
So the other thing is, at one point, a character's NPC dies, and he brainlessly starts peeing on him.
What?
Yeah. The 11 intelligence Minotaur fighter is acting like a intelligence 1 bear and pissing on someone that died.
That's not normal.
No, it's not.
Well, I would understand pissing on someone when they die if it was a part of like culture.
No. I've failed. I really doubt that's a cultural thing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I think the problem with the player's thought process is he was thinking of what a mental patient would do.
Yes.
Like, what would a mental patient that was told he is evil would do? Like, I have no idea what evil actually is. Clearly it means I pee on people. Ha ha ha, I'm evil. Like, no, that's not evil. That's stupid.
Yes, there's a saying about in D&D community. What was it? The chaotic stupid.
Yeah, there's lawful and chaotic stupid, which is where you're basically making fun of people that do not understand what the Gygaxian alignments mean.
Yep.
You simply something was lost in translation, and you do not know what it means. And people often go, "Oh, well, you're being elitist. You're telling people you're playing the game wrong." No, I'm telling people that they're not playing with their group right.
Yes.
Okay.
At the end of the day, every single rule that is in the D&D,
do you want to know?
Everything is.
Do you want to know what happened? I mean, you're right, but do you want to know what happened after he started peeing on the dead halfling? The group nearly destroyed itself as we all started screaming at him, going, "What are you doing? That's not chaotic evil. What are you doing? We're sick of this." It took 2 sessions of supervillain evil for us to go no more, because it's not sustainable. That's why there was so much documentation. And do you know what happened afterward when I told him to I just suggested reading these essays, and he said, I don't want people to tell me how to play my character. Now, here's why this is hypocritical and wrong of this player. Because he is telling the rest of the party, you have to play like me because I'm dictating how this party acts. Because I'm our envoy. I kill everyone we meet. No prisoners. This is how our party acts. You are telling us how to play the game. Fuck you.
Yes. As I said before, at the end of the day, everything that matters is subjected to one thing and one thing only. Do you and your party have fun?
Unfortunately, toxic players like this person exist, and they're going to continue ruining the game for other people, but we just have to figure out ways to limit the damage they can do to our hobby. And I admit I took this very far away from the question, but it boils down to is if people feel that your behavior is not becoming of you, the answer isn't to say, that's my character, deal with it. The answer is, I'm sorry, I offended you guys, I'm going to rein myself in. Because all we were asking was for him to tone things down. We weren't asking him not to be evil, because there are other evil people in the party. Doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But no, he had to whine and say, oh, well, I need to make a new character because I made this character the way he is. And you know what? Fine. Whatever. I have no doubt he's going to make a lawful good character that's going to constantly raise his sword at everyone that commits a crime, because that's the stereotype of lawful good.
Again and again, lawful.
Like, he only plays one. He always picks a stupid alignment, apparently, and unfortunately, there's no way to stop that with people. Because some people play the Gygaxian alignments. Some people play the stupid alignments.
Yep.
And, you know, there are parties that love this. There are whole groups of people that play 4th edition and 3.5 that love those alignments. They love the stupid alignments. They're all about raping babies and slitting throats and going to war with everyone they meet. Like, there are people that love that, but we're not into it in the main hobby.
Yep.
That's not how we play.
It's very difficult to find people who actually enjoy that.
It is.
Because
these are usually kids. They're usually kids that have never, that don't really, that harbor a little hatred towards people. They get lost in this power fantasy, I think. And so they just want to start raping and killing and pillaging because it feels good, you know? It feels good to let that anger out. Yep. But like in real life, if you're venting a lot of fucked up anger in front of people, they're going to go, whoa, tone it back.
Yep.
And that's our answer that nobody wanted. And
thank you all for listening.
Thank you.